Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. In today's video we have a fascinating presentation by Laveena Archers titled Human Design for Astrologers. And lastly, if you wish to view our current class, workshop and webinar offerings, please visit KeplerCollege.org. And without further ado, let's get into the video.
So I want to introduce Laveena. Laveena is a Jovian archive affiliated writer and educator immersed in the human design system since 2014. As alumna and faculty member at the International Human Design School and BG5 Business Institute, Laveena began her passionate exploration in 2012, actively contributing to the growth of human design. Her journey unfolds as a mentor, inspiring individuals to embrace unique paths and fostering personal and professional development through practical solutions encoded in their DNA, with a focus on precise advice for personal and leadership success. Laveena elegantly elucidates the transformative power of human design, guiding professionals towards their highest potential. You can find her at humandesignlifecoaching.com. We're very excited to have Laveena here with us today. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Laveena. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Lori. I feel really privileged to be able to share human design for astrologers with your audience. You look like a wonderful college, and it's been a while since I've taken some classes at the college. I'm looking forward to continuing my education when the schedule opens up, because just a fascinating journey into the realms of astrology. So I have put into the chat area a link to a place where you can get your free human design body graph. And that is mybodygraph.com. It's not my website. It is a website where you can get a free chart. And I would love to see, as you can see, some people in the chat sharing what their human design is. Looks like we do have some people who are familiar with their human design charts. So that's really wonderful to see. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see this is the website that we're going to be, or you're going to be getting your chart if you need one, okay? And I am actually going to share my screen for my presentation. This is, by the way, my body graph is the personal application. For professionals, we have something else called biomechanics. So some of the images you'll see, this is today's transit. Some of the images you'll see in the presentation happen to be from both. So one of the things I'm gonna ask you to do is take a deep breath with me. Laveena is very sensitive to frequencies, and I know there's a lot of people in the room. And if you could just come into the space with me, I want to make sure that you're going to be well served by this presentation. So regardless of whether you know your human design or not, some of us are really much more focused on audio, other people way more visual. If my visuals distract you, I invite you to close your eyes. Okay, if it's too much movement, too many colors, that kind of thing, you can always come back to the recording and stop the recording and take notes and look at what I'm talking about if you're more of a vocal, auditory person. If you're more visual stimulation, got plenty of visuals for you, and you will get a handout at the end of the presentation. So don't worry that you're going to miss something. Everything will be here for you to process. Know nothing about it. Oh my gosh, we've got everybody all under the sun. Okay, so I'm going to ask and request for those of you who do know a little bit about human design, if you are in professional training or are a professional, if you see any questions that float by in the chat where somebody's a little confused, please feel free to reach out, and I trust that you will follow your decision-making strategy and be in alignment with being able to support this class. Very new. Okay, so I represent, since 2012, I started human design, but in 2014, I was hired by Jovian Archive, which is the source of the human design system. The man who put it out into the world, his family hired me, and there are 2 certifying bodies. I also am a faculty member at both of those places. So when we go into this material, I do want you to know, for astrologers, I'm going to assume that most of you at least know some of the astrological terms. And you'll notice that, and this is my challenge to you, you'll notice that there's a lot of stuff you already know. So you think that you don't know human design, but I imagine by the end of this class, you're going to go, wow, I know a lot about human design because you're an astrologer or you're studying astrology. I don't consider myself an astrologer. I consider myself to be studying astrology because astrological sciences are so vast and huge. I can't imagine any one person being able to master all of it. I'm still working on mastering the human design system. So it is a vast body of knowledge. Some of the terms you're going to find very familiar. Others might be totally new. Just remember what Laveena is attempting to do is bridge the gap between what I imagine you already know and showing you where you can ground yourself into this another vast body of knowledge to be able to source into experimenting with anything that you can pick up that really resonates with you, or you really visually get stimulated by, oh, that looks really interesting. Or maybe potentially there's something in the quality of my voice that leads you to want to engage with the material more. When you feel that rise of energy or that leaning into the screen, or maybe you want to go back and listen again and scribble down some notes, that's your sign, okay? Any engagement that you have with the material, you're like, wow, I would literally like to go and study that. Where can I get that information? That's one of the things that I'm really good at, is helping guide you in the system. So let's go ahead and get started. We're looking at the human design system, which its full term is called the science of differentiation. So when it comes, I'm now closing the chat. Thank you all very much for your communications. I'll let my team handle it from now on until there's a space to take a break and check for questions. What you're looking at is the definitive book of human design, and it is the one that I recommend if you're going to get started in human design. I have an announcement to make. This actual experience that you're going to have, I have several copies of the human design definitive book. One of them is going to be donated to the KeplerCollege, to their library. Another one is going to be given away to somebody, anybody, depends on whoever gives us the most engaging response when it comes to this video being posted on social media, on Kepler's social medias. So you're going to get the opportunity until the end of this month to reply to me, and here's my challenge. If you were surprised that you already knew a little bit of human design because of your astrological background, I would like to hear either a written, you might post a blog or a video, but share that with us under wherever you find this video. And whoever gets the most votes is going to get the book. And it can go anywhere in the world. I don't care where you are. I will send it to you wherever you are in the world. So that's my gift to you for participating and engaging with this material today. As you can see, it's a very thick book, and it's a hard copy. And it's got lots and lots of pictures for those of you who like pictures, and lots of words. Now, the other recommendation I do have, if you're interested in today's webinar, when I get to the end of this, there is some of this information, the complete Rave I Ching is in that definitive book, but a second place, I will send a complete Rave I Ching. So that particular book, whoever gets the second place, this is a thinner copy, okay? And then someone at random, I didn't want to leave anybody out. So if you're not an astrologer and you're very new to human design and you're like, this is way over my head. I don't know, Laveena, that's just like way too much. This is actually the grand prize. And this is something for your surprise today, where you were surprised by human design. Actually, your recognition, your realizations, your response, whatever it is that you found most impactful. Okay, so this is going to be something that I personally choose because of what I recognize, the feeling that I get when I read your comments. Okay, so that's 3 prizes that we're going to give you. And all of you who are in attendance, plus those people who are downloading the recording, you'll get a bunch of resources just as a gift for being here and for playing. Okay, so Laveena is somebody who loves reinventing herself, and I've made a lot of different reiterations of how I present materials to you in order to get the message across. Currently, I'm going with Iconic Human Design, LLC. And it's because if you look at this body graph, you may not have seen this before if you're not familiar with human design. It might be totally new, but those of you who it's not that new, you might not have seen the multidimensional 3D-ish kind of capabilities that we have now with the body graph and to be able to understand the energetic flows within your chakras, your energetic vortices that are within your body, that's one of the benefits of human design, because it helps us understand. And here you can see some of my qualifications over at the International Human Design School. It helps us come to grips with what it is like to be alive in this form, in this body, this vehicle that is part of the nature of being in this world, in this reality. So what you're looking at now is, this is the Rave Mandala wheel. Everybody familiar with your 12 astrological signs, yeah, and the houses. We don't use a house system here because we don't use the rising sign per se. We have a lot of other calculations that we're going to get into, but what you can see is that astrological wheel. And so right there, you already know a little bit about human design, but I'll show you more. Don't worry, we're going to go and explore more. But to orient you, I'm going to go through a bunch of slides and just show you around. So being a little tour guide, if you will, so that you can see the synthesis of what is the human design system. It incorporates the Chinese I Ching. The Western zodiac is what we use for our personal calculations. The Hindu Brahmin chakra system and the Judaic Kabbalah are also here. So chakras or vortices or portals of energy, where we have those hexagrams opening up the portal gates, opening up those portals of energetic flow or awareness or some kind of response. So you'll see as we move through this presentation, if you've got your body graph with you, you can look at that and see whether or not you've got activations, so planetary life aspects, the planets, activating specific areas of your body graph, and then you're going to learn something about yourself just by today's presentation. Now, one of the really cool things about this system is it's not only the ancient observational sciences that I just mentioned, but it's also the modern day processes of understanding our human genetics, our biology, our psychology. And so it's a little bit beyond the scope of this webinar, but just to know that that genetic code, if you will, inside of you, where the planetary life aspects have imprinted you, show us your preferences or predispositions to how you're here to be unique, uniquely you and uniquely different. So when it comes to that body graph, this is really the magic of the whole system, is to be able to see a visual representation in a body, see the little shape of the body right there, with all of those different functions, and our form follows function. So when we add on the information you already know signs, don't you? I imagine you know where your sun is, you know where your moon is, but did you know that you have an earth imprint too? That's one of the differences about the human design system, is that immediately across the wheel from where your sun is, so you can go look at this in your own software now, you don't even have to get new software, just look directly across the mandala wheel, polar opposite, and see where the core essence of your personality consciousness is grounded in your form, or this earth, this body of knowledge gives us an additional imprint. So not only that, but it's going to give us some archetypal themes or flavors that you're going to lay onto what you already know. So it's very helpful if you come to this place of, wow, I think I already know a little bit of this, because what is Gemini about? Do you know? What is Gemini about, my friends? Tell me what Gemini is about. Excellent communication. So if we take a look at what we're looking at in this body graph, this mandala wheel, do you see how a significant portion of these gates up here, activations up here, are in the throat center? Okay, there you have it. You know a little bit about human design, speaking these voices that actually carry sound frequency formula that have meaning and transmit information. The one right here, 15, that has a little tiny portion of it there in Gemini, it's a gate of extremes. So these vacillations between extremes. And so you were saying siblings, right? A binary, as we can see. So see how you already know a little bit about human design when it comes to understanding this magical mandala. And when we look at this magical mandala, you're now looking at these archetypal themes that we can link up into that mandala wheel. Now, it's not that you're going to go around and pray to Kali, that's where I was born, but it's showing a genetic theme that is part of your life purpose fulfillment. And that might be quite surprising too. So all you have to do is go look at your personality and see where in the mandala wheel your personality awareness imprint was when you were born, and you can find your Godhead. That's a little bit beyond the scope. We won't get into that, but just orienting you to the architecture of life. And that's what we have here with Ra Uru Hu and his human design system. We have the design of forms. We have not only the design of humans, as you can see in the middle here, we have inanimate objects, we have single-celled organisms, we have birds, reptiles, and fish. We have the insects, we have mammals. We have also trans-auric entities, which is quite creepy and weird and interesting and wonderful, because we can look at a group, small group, or several large groups, put them together and see whole new ways of interacting or interfacing with each other. So in the science of differentiation, if we go back to a human design chart, because that's way more practical for us to explore right now, we have 26 activations because there are 13 conscious and 13 unconscious planetary life imprints. Those imprints are brought into one of the 9 centers where we have 36 channels. Channels are simply the areas where a portal in space can connect up with another portal in space and be brought into a body graph where we can see these thematics within our own bodies. We can test it, we can validate it, we can experiment with it, try and see how well it works for us. Those 64 gates and hexagrams, they don't float around, they're always fixed, but it is the planets that are the wandering stars, as the ancients used to call them. The planets that are going to give you a specific genetic imprinting based upon what that planet flavor is. And also underneath that portal in space, each portal, each gate, the hexagrams, are subdivided into 6 different sections. We call them lines, hexagram lines. So if you've ever studied the I Ching, you already know a lot of human design. Isn't that funny? So these basic planetary keynotes, I imagine as you look at this, there's probably no surprise there, right? They look pretty familiar. Do you recognize anything very different? Because yes, we do have more words that we can use in human design. Obviously, there's a whole lot of information that we can use, but just the basic information. We have our psychology and our physiology when we apply this information into our human design body graph. So these hexagrams, now I know I went over and didn't read all of that. Laveena's not a fan of reading stuff off the screen. My apologies if that's bothering you. Close the eyes. Don't look at the words. Just look at the image, maybe. Maybe the image is a nice place to look. Because now we're highlighting those 64 hexagrams in the mandala, or in other words, gates, like portals in space, where if a planet was there, all hail Zeus. If a planet, Jupiter, is there, currently it's in the communication function, our throat center, and it's holding the door open for us to be able to communicate and contribute to each other in a way that holds all of us together towards a group goal. That's where Laveena's strongest unconscious imprinting is on the body side. That's where I get my worth realized in individuating into somebody who can teach this knowledge. So when you look at a hexagram or a gate, every single gate has, again, 6 lines, so 6 different subdivisions of that gate. And every gates, lines, because of the principle of genetic continuity, which says that all lines resonate with each other. I'm going to say it a different way. In the gates, in that portal in space, if we subdivide each of the 64 gates into 6 different sections, 1 will resonate with 1, and 2 will resonate with 2, and 3 with 3, and 4 with 4, and 5 with 5, 6 with 6. So there's this resonance principle that we have that once you learn that word, you will start to see it play out, particularly if it's in your life's work, the role, the costume that you wear, the personality construct as it lives in this body, this vehicle, enjoys being embodied in form. So now underneath the surface of the lines, we are going to have even more further nuance. If you're interested, the original presentation I had for you was going through all the lines. I'm like, I'm going to show them really, wow, their socks off. And then I realized that was too deep. So we're going to go a little bit more surface level, but there is some more information I can give you if you're interested in the hexagram structure, because it's the foundational basis for human design. And you can see that we have yang and yin. If you don't know what yang and yin is, think the sun. And then, oh, the moon or the earth. Very different than that sun, isn't it? Life, the way that we are imprinted, is a binary. That entire mandala wheel, polar opposites. If you go around and look at those activations, those hexagrams, you will see that they are arranged in a circular fashion with the exact polar opposite, or the mirror in the mandala, right across the way. Now, underneath the surface of each of those hexagram lines, we have something very interesting. Even further, the differentiation of our form to take in life uniquely, or of our mind and its awareness to give of our frequency to another cleanly. We have something underneath the surface of our awareness, and that underneath aspect of us is there because of something called the neutrino stream. So a neutrino is a tiny, tiny particle that actually Ra declared has mass because of this information that he downloaded, that he brought out to the world. And what you're looking at is that there's a stream of energy that enters into our crystals of consciousness. We have a crystal that is conscious personality, the witness, the eternal soul, the you that was you before time was time, when we were all one thing. And then we also have the design imprint, which is part of the form, which is coming from this earth. So we have these 2 crystals of consciousness. In fact, everything has crystals of consciousness, but those are our primary crystals of consciousness that we work with in analytical fashion. And the neutrino stream, when you were born, it entered into the base of the crystal, and then the inner architecture of the crystal, and then it exits. And because we have an entry, inner, and exit frequency, what happens is we have a very, very specific nuanced activation of a gate. So you can see not just those 64 gates, not just one of 6 lines, but also you have a color and tone and base. So there is an eternal nature of you that you can look at in your body graph, which is quite interesting. So there again is the personality crystal, this spirit of consciousness that arises from within you as a witness to this body, this vehicle, the design crystal, which is living the life experience that you are all wandering through, or excitedly running through, or skipping and dancing, or maybe you're sleeping it through. I don't know. It's up to you as far as how you're going to live your life. So there's one more thing we need to talk about, and that's magnetic monopole. It's going to get really important when we go over to Taurus, where the sun is, right? So we're going to look at the magnetic monopole, which is part of the design crystal that came from the center of the earth. And when it separated inside of your mother's womb, that is what built the body. So this body got an imprint 88 degrees of the sun's movement before your birth. And that is where you have the energetic imprinting of this physical form. So that's another difference between astrology as it's usually done and human design. We're looking at two calculations that are brought into the body graph: your unconscious genetic inheritance and your personality consciousness, so the witness of who you think you are. So the personality consciousness is the black calculation on that right-hand side. This is the moment of birth. And then we have the unconscious, 88 degrees of the sun's movement, or approximately 88, 89 days. This is before your birth. This is the nature of your unconscious, not subconscious. This is your unconscious, your biogenetic inheritance from the genetic lineage to which this body belongs. Okay, so when we bring the two together, they're not separate things, they're one thing. But when we bring the two together, we're going to see relationships between your mind, your conscious awareness of who you think you are, and your form, this vehicle, this body, which is life. So what I notice in experimenting with this over time is that it's not only about learning and identifying what is consistent or defined within the body graph, which you can see here. We have the 9 centers, their names there, kind of like the chakra system, but everything got an evolvement or an upgrade. We got a mutation. Okay, so what we're looking at is that there is something consistent inside of you for the vast majority of you. Reliable, trustworthy, fixed, your nature that is completely unique and different. No one else on the planet has your exact, we're calling that definition. Definition is where we have life force, which is activated through 2 planetary aspects, whether they're conscious or unconscious, meeting together in a channel. Think of a channel like, you know, how channeling is like opening a portal. It's a channel of energy or awareness, some kind of function that makes you unique, utterly unique. And that very configuration of the many different ways that this chart could be configured through definition. Again, definition, remember, these lines between these centers, the functioning being fixed because there's planets reaching out to each other. Hey, nice to meet you. You know, this is who we are, this life. That can also show up in many different ways. Those are the definition types. We also have no definition. I would love to know if there's anybody in here that has no definition in your human design body graph, because you're a very special and unique person. And I would love to know if this is a surprise for you today about how unique you are. So now when we look, I'm going to zoom back from looking at just the body graph itself. I want you to take a look at your body graph and look at those 2 calculations, the sun and earth on the conscious and the sun and earth on the unconscious. So relative to those 2 activations, this 70% of your genetic imprinting that is your life's work. There are about 192 possibilities, but then under the surface, there's all sorts of ways that this can show up. So when you're looking at your mandala wheel, you're going to find that where your personality sun is somewhere within that wheel. Mine happens to be, again, in Kali. Okay, so where I am in this mandala wheel, it's going to be unique to you, but mine is purpose fulfilled through the foundational learning of my mind's process, so that I can contagiate you with the awareness that I have gleaned over this trial and error filled life experience, so that you can learn not to make Laveena's mistakes. Isn't it nice when somebody says, hey, don't eat that? That's going to make you sick. You get to see Laveena make these mistakes personally and then share with you my experience about what happened and what I learned. Now you'll notice again, we have those different calculations underneath the surface. This is where we see the differentiation of why you're different. Even if our charts look exactly the same, even if we were born on the same day, same year, different time, ooh, everything's very, 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 very different under the surface. And still, we can find our commonality. We can find our shared reality. When we look at our life's work, look down at your body graph when it comes to those sun-earth calculations, You're going to see them brought into that body graph. You're going to see how the sun's core essence is grounded into the earth, and your body, which is the life that you are living, is also grounded into the form. And this is the 70%. This is the reason why you are here, why you were reborn. So when we look at life purpose fulfillment, a human design analyst can analyze a body graph just like you as an astrologer analyze, your way, your systems. But the body graph is where the magic really happens. And you're looking now here at the control panel, these top two calculations. You see the familiar symbols, right? Sun and earth, sun and earth. And then also we see nodes, where you fulfill your life purpose with, or with whom you fulfill your life purpose. And then we see these magical squares down below. So again, on the personality side, this is your psychology. On the design side, this is your physiology. So I'm really fascinated by how this intersection of information dovetails into what you already know, wherever you're at. And that's why I made that call, and I want to reward you with those books, is because I want to hear what surprised you in this particular webinar. Was it the fact that your physiology, here's Laveena's, and your psychology, hello, here we are different? Was it the fact that potentially you could see your biogenetic inheritance from your grandparents and great-grandparents, potentially, parents? Was it the fact that potentially you've been experimenting with human design? So I would like to learn or hear from you too. You've been experimenting with human design for a while, and you've also noticed, this is my noticing over some years of experimenting, that the psychology or the mental reality starts to take a little bit of a back seat, and the physiology or the body's nature of being can now be witnessed by the mind as you watch your form begin to differentiate, as you watch your body begin to come alive, be empowered or share or support in such a way that your mind is surprised by what comes out. And that's right there, one of those things that you can attune to. When you read a body graph from the physiological side or the body's biogenetic inheritance, the mind may not identify with what's going on the body side because it's unconscious. And as you decondition, in human design, we call this phrase experimentation. We have the enter into the experiment. And that is simply treating your body the way it's designed to be treated, making decisions that you can trust, eating correctly for your vehicle, your body, which is life. The vehicle, I keep saying, because your passenger consciousness, the witness consciousness, is riding around on this form, observing as the form is doing its thing. And so that was the thing that was really surprising. In the beginning, completely oblivious to this body. In fact, completely disempowered and very much shut down 12 years ago. So now what I find is that the way that I articulate, the way that I sound, the way that I look, the way that I behave, very different. Of course, everybody's going to change over the years, but that might be something that you've noticed too. And I'd like to hear about that. Okay, so I'm just going to take a pause there and see how this is landing. If there's anything questions-wise that was short that maybe we need to engage with in order to keep the group together so I don't lose anybody. Okay, so anything that's really confusing, if I need to restate something, please let me know.
We have questions, but I think that they're more general on the presentation. But if you want to answer some now, we can, or if you want to ask for
Not personal
specific...
questions, yeah.
No,
let's do
but...
this one right here. The Ain Callaghan. Is that okay? If someone is born premature through an emergency C-section, does it impact the body graph? That's a really good one. And I'll say yes, because the moment of birth, when you left your mother's womb, is the moment of imprinting. Just like your birth data in astrology, if you had a cesarean section, If you were delivered by cesarean section, then that would be your birth, right? So 88 degrees of the sun's movement before your birth, that is the unconscious biogenetic inherited imprinting. So it doesn't matter as long as whether you are a natural birth, whether you are premature, the moment of birth, that's the moment you get imprinted by the neutrino ocean, just like with astrology. Okay. So
Lori
this is
Klein
another,
has a question
yeah.
about like some confusion. Does the coloring matter in the chart? I'm confused by the coloring. I printed out 2 different charts from different sites. And for instance, the bottom left was white in one chart and brown in the other chart, but the numbers were the same.
That's really good. Okay, so we have to address something here. One of the reasons why I am so passionate about this system and this knowledge is because there are a lot of bastardized versions out there where people have appropriated the material, created their own systems so that they can have their own software and make their own money and have their own whatever. So I work with the source of the system, the founders of the system, and the only 2 softwares I recommend are mybodygraph.com and mayamechanics.com. That's it. Okay, everything else, those are not legally licensed, they're not approved, they're not official. There's the right word. They're not official. So the color, when it's colored in of those centers, shows that you have consistency. When it's open, it simply means inconsistent. It means you're learning about life. So learning about life relative to the open areas of the design is where you can be not only conditioned, but conditioning isn't a bad thing. I condition my hair. If I didn't do that, it would be very dry. I wouldn't live life if I didn't have the engagement with life. Where you're open is where you're receiving life. That's literally where you enter into someone else and you can condition each other or give energy and awareness and communion or communication. So it's not a bad thing. There is no right, wrong, or good or bad in this system. I hope that one helps. Okay.
There's a good question here about accurate birth time. How accurate does the birth time need to be? And if you don't have an accurate birth time to the minute, what happens?
Okay, so in our industry, most of the time we refer people to a Vedic astrologer because Vedic astrology is really, really good at looking at events in your life and being able to get very, very precise, like down to the second. But also in our industry, there are a lot less people educated at the level to where they can do chart rectification as well. But there are ways where in the deeper layers, we can ask you questions, have you experiment, and find what's right for you to a very pretty good indicator. It's you and your own authority. We're not going to tell you what it is. We'll say, well, you could be this and you could be that. Which one resonates with you? And it's quite accurate too, to be sure. So relative to the information that you are receiving from this body graph, always make sure you run it through your own filter and framework of what you know to be true about yourself. This system is not about telling you what to do. It's about putting the power back in your hands and to show you that you are completely individual, and it is here to facilitate your individuation. So that feels like enough. Is that good for now, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I was looking for more clarifying questions, and there's quite a few, but I think that they can wait till the end. Hopefully I got all the confusing questions.
Big picture questions, yeah. And don't forget, you guys, if you're feeling a little impatient, you have that chat area. It looks like I've got like 80 chats since I closed off that. And there are some incredible professionals, some of which I've trained here, that are in support of the knowledge and want to be able to contribute as well, because it's a great day for that. Today is a day of contribution. So I honor and trust that you'll find your way to the right people for you, because the next shift that we're going to make is into something that I imagine might surprise you. It really might. and you might resonate with it. It might ring true for you. And it might be something that food for thought, that you might be able to create some social media content out of that for us to enjoy and to peruse when it comes to this particular video. So if you, again, look down at your body graph, remember those top two numbers that we're looking at, the sun and earth, that are either conscious or unconscious, grounded, into this vehicle, this form. The dot right after the gate number, there's a dot, a period, and then a single digit. So you can see in this design, I am a 3, 5. We always read it from the black to the red. Even though over the years, your form begins to come alive and awaken, and the form dominates. In the beginning, the conscious personality, we're going to hook you with the awareness of what you are. Okay, so there are 3 different ways that we can subcategorize, just in general, 3 different ways. We subcategorize the profile or the public role, the costume that you wear in this life, 3 different ways. I happen to be on a right angle. That has to do with the genetic imprinting, the angularity of the imprint between the personality and the design. I'm a right angle. Most of you are. We are all here with personal destiny to fulfill. These mean very specific things in human design. Your personal destiny is your own. It doesn't require that you come across very specific people in order to clear up past karma, as an example. So personal destiny people are people who are more personally focused, way more self-involved, or way more self-focused to a point. There are many different nuances and subtleties, as you well know, in astrology in order to find more clarity about this. But big picture view, those line qualities, which do have a specific set of themes, those line qualities give us the genetic imprint of the costume that we wear and what we resonate to throughout the entire 64-gate mandala matrix. There are 12 profiles. You are one of these that you see. And yet, this is a very gross generality, and you are such a specificity. We're not going to go to the specificity. That was the one I wanted to deliver to you that I went, nope, too much last week. We're going to talk basically about the way in which you're going to fulfill your life's work. Are you right angle, personal destiny? Or are you juxtaposition, which is a fixed fate? Or are you a left angle, which is about your transpersonal karma? The karma or action that you have to fulfill in this life with very specific allies in order that you clean up past life karma. So if you could look down at your body graph and see that left angle, I want to ask you a question and see if it surprises you. Have you ever met somebody that felt like an old friend or so familiar? You could swear that you've been lifetime after lifetime after lifetime with that lover or that child that finally is reborn into your life, or that uncle or aunt or mother or father, sister, brother, doesn't matter. Do you remember some of that comfort of familiarity, or maybe a shade of that? We've played this dance, this game, this movie before. This is what is part of your life's work when it comes to fulfilling a transpersonal, between 2 people, karmic fulfillment of purpose. So that, if you recognize that, that's the 5-1, 5-2, or 6-2, and 6-3. You have karma to fulfill with very specific people in this life, which is very different from, if you look down here at the bottom, the vast majority, us right angle, we're banging around, we're creating karma. We are like the research and development area of the hexagram. And then right there, that little sliver in the middle, this is a fixed fate. This is a one-way track. And they are like the glue that hold together the transpersonal karma people and the personal destiny people. So I'm a personal destiny. I'm one of those people banging around, making mistakes, learning about things. And then, hey, this, you guys, this really is cool. You gotta check this out. This is really cool. Have you learned about this? I got it. Because that's my mind. Okay, so I tend to come across very specific 4-1s. That's the fixed fate people. And fixed fate people are people who are going to build strong networks in order that the information from down here, research and development, right angle, personal destiny, gets to the left angle and that transpersonal karma purpose fulfillment. So personal destiny people, that's our 1-3, 1-4, 2-4, 2-5, 3-5, 3-6, and 4-6. Even though you 4-6s may have more interaction with others, it's still about your own personal trip, this life. And whatever it is that we have, like research and development, whatever it is that we've processed or experienced, we can pass along that genetic continuity or penetrate into the collective and be able to pass on the knowledge of what we've learned. And sometimes it goes to those very specific left angle transpersonal karma people who are going to put it out into the world in a much bigger way. So that right there might surprise you. It might be interesting. It might be engaging. It's something to investigate, to be sure. And again, remember, generality, your specificity. If you want to go deeper into this, true profile shows you so much more, because remember how there was underneath the surface of line quality, there's color, tone, and base. The way that we read our lines in life is, if life was a script, movie script, the way that we read our lines in life is colored by what's underneath. What's that imprint? And you can see that we have a body type and we have a personality identification. So there are these two aspects of ourselves at play. And the more that you align to your form, this vehicle, this life, the easier life becomes. It's not going to be exactly perfect, but you may notice that you are more in harmony in life, or you are more resonant with life. And you may find that you find each other because now that you're resonating on a better frequency for you, as in more comfortable, not that anything's good, bad, right, or wrong, but just that you will be able to be heard by the people on your fractal, the people that are there to be heard from and for you to hear. The way that this energy exchange, or this dance of this Maya, this illusion, it goes both ways. So you're going to find that over time, as you decondition and as you align, have you noticed that in astrology where somebody's been seeing you for years and you watch as, you know, you help them through their process that don't serve them, and they evolve. Same thing's happening here. The same thing can happen here, because we are working with the variability of humans, and everybody can express on a different frequency. You can evolve, yes? So when you're looking at the body graph, somebody was asking, what do those two arrows mean? Those sets of arrows, that's something called variable. It has to do with the color, actually, particularly the tone underneath that line quality. And it's a little bit beyond the scope of this class, but it's a definite area of interest, radical transformations, after you have some time in the experiment of being your own authority. It's a really amazing place to go look. Remember how at the beginning I was telling you, you know, some of us are really about sound and other people vision. Those kinds of things. How are you here to take in life differently and uniquely? So let's go back up to the surface for a bit. If we look at your body graph again, remember I use the term definition as in defined. When something's defined, it's very present. Yeah. If I go look up astrology and I read what I think it was, I looked up what is astrology last night, and I was preparing for this. And it was Wikipedia or some dictionary or something described what astrology is. Planetary bodies and how they affect the form. That's what human design is. Okay, so what we're looking at is definition of planets in relationship to each other in a channel, which brings strength to your design. And when you're operating in alignment, this is reliable, trustworthy, and it is unique, utterly unique. Because those two planets or more, sometimes there's more, think like a stellium in a sign, okay? You might have a lot of different planetary activations that are within that particular area of the body graph that brings forth variability, uniqueness to the way in which you are perceived by others or the way in which you perceive yourself. But that doesn't mean that the openness in your design is bad or wrong or broken or flawed. In fact, it's magnificent. What it allows you to do is learn from each other. Think of us like puzzle pieces. Wherever it is that I have a gate activation, you have the other side. Woohoo! Is this work? Is this fun? Is this not? Oh, no, I don't like that. Let's go somewhere else. You know, that's part of the way that my body tends to engage with people. This, my mind engaging with people. Openness, maybe I'll try that one. Or areas of information. Is this really interesting? I'm going to play with it for a little while. Maybe not. Okay, so openness is where you are receiving life, where you're receptive to conditioning. And the conditioning receptors in your design, they're not empty. They're open. This is where you're fluid, you're flexible, you can learn about life. You know how you guys do cycles? We do them too. Cycles of life. The life experience brought in where we can see people, places, opportunities, events, because of that very nature of the cyclical process of our Saturns and our solars and our Uranus opposition and our Chiron return and our second Saturn and our lunar cycles. That's where you're receptive to conditioning. So you can see this constant interplay between life that it is lived through you, as you, the definition or the activations within you, filter through what life has to offer you. And you follow your body into those places where it feels engaging, where it feels fun, where it feels surprising or delightful when it comes to your response, your energetics, your availability to be engaged, or maybe you go, nope, don't prefer that. You're angry, you're bitter, you're frustrated, you're disappointed. Those are all signposts that your body is speaking to you with in order that you come to an awareness about what is right for you. That's all we're doing here. Filters of the consciousness data stream. Okay, so we're about an hour in. I am curious if you would like to engage again, Lori, if this is a good time, because I'm going to shift gears into a little bit more before I go into type and more astrology stuff.
Okay, we have lots of questions. We already have 20, so I'm not sure that we'll have time to get through all of them, but I think I'm just going to start at the top and we'll see how far we get. So the first question is about the upcoming shift in 2027. Does it correspond with any major planetary aspects that will be happening around the same time, which are rare or especially transformative on a global scale?
Yeah, absolutely. Really great question. So this is way beyond the scope of the personal application, but at the very end of the presentation, I have a link to explain 2027, the background frequency shift, and there's a video. So there's going to be a blog post that you can read through. And it does absolutely have to do, in short, to make a short-term answer out of it, with Pluto going through the start codon in our genetics, which it actually quite is right now. Start codon in our genetics, when it gets to a point where it's time for the mutation of the human species, that right there is going to be when we have a new round or a new evolutionary cycle where the background frequency shifts. And that is where we are talking about precession of the equinoxes and the genetic themes that all of us humans are subject to. So right there, I want to stop because I don't want to go too far out of the personal purview.
Okay. I think
And no personal chart questions, because can't answer that without looking at personal stuff.
Okay, I wasn't quite sure if that was an example or personal. So we'll move on to the next one. What does it mean when your personality planet and design planet are the same?
That's generally going to happen when we have retrogrades, and everybody knows what retrogrades do, right? It's going to emphasize a specific gate activation if you've got it in both conscious and unconscious. Now, the lines may be different depending on which planetary activation, depending on which planet might be in retrograde, depending on how fast that planet moves. But basically, what you're looking at is an additional genetic theme as well as a conscious aspect. You're running around on the surface, aware of this or that. And while underneath the surface, at the body level, something else may be going, unless it's exactly precise. That's quite rare. Because if you remember, we have line, then color, then tone, then base. Very, very sensitive genetic imprints. That help?
I think this goes back to one of your slides that was demonstrating. The question is about the arrows, the black and red, right, left on the top of the chart, and what does it mean?
Yeah, that is, again, one of those places that each one of them. So if we could imagine, I'm about to go into types. So those of you who know what aura type is, if we could subdivide human species into 4 different basic kinds of auric frequencies, we can also subdivide the human species beyond type into 16 different variables. So what you're looking at is the forms differentiation, all the red arrows, the arrows over on the left-hand side if you're looking at a body graph. And then all of the right arrows, you're looking at the way that you are designed to be aware of life uniquely and differently. So because there are 4 different arrows and they can either point left or point right, we now have 16 different variations. And this is the way that we can awaken to our nature of being. Variables is a very advanced area of the knowledge, and I would suggest waiting on that before we go any further with that one. But it has to do with the tonal cognition, or one's body cognition, the way that we take in life and are nourished from the inside out, the way that we are nourished from the outside in on the body side, and on the mind side, the way that we see the world and the way that we are aware or out. We are aware of how our motivational frequency pops out of our awareness. That's a good place to stop right there.
Okay. Would you like to take more questions, or
let's stop and continue? Yeah, keep the engagement going. Okay, so let me find type, because look, we haven't even gotten to I probably won't have time for all of this. I know I won't. But when it comes to the materials, this might be one of the most practical places. Okay, now, if you know a little bit about Rave history, that's a Rave body graph, by the way, in case I didn't mention. Human design, the Rave body graph. In the beginning, when Ra was given the system, because it was a download that he got, there was no aura types, energetic frequencies of being. But at some point, he did enough analyses where he realized, and he started to see patterns, he realized people weren't quite getting it. They didn't know what to do with all this information. At this point, you might be feeling the same too. You're like, well, Laveena, this is like way too much, way over my head. I don't know what do I do about this? Okay, so you remember how I was guiding you at the beginning? You know, I want to get you in touch with your being, your availability to respond, your energetic nature. There are some signature frequencies or signposts of the spirit of abundance that rises from within the form that allows you to live one's life uniquely so that you can fulfill the purpose that you came here for. So I have a history, a background in body work and energetic healing and such. And one of the things when I was in massage school, long time ago, I will not tell you how long, very long, when we look at the body and try to understand how the body is built, there was this phrase, form follows function. So this form, this energetic blueprint, this body, which is the life, the body is built by the aura. It's not the other way around. We live within an energetic bubble. And that bubble, that auric frequency field, creates this life, this body, this vehicle, which is the life. So now there are 4 different vehicles based upon one's nature of form and energy and availability to be aware or to make an impact, depending on the nature of you. So if you're new to human design, you're going to look down at your body graph and you're going to see one of 4 words. You're going to see projector, generator, manifester, and reflector. Now, there is a subtype of manifesting generator, just like there are subtypes of projector and subtypes of manifester. So I don't want you to get confused by thinking that there is a lot more complexity to this. There's not. All you have to do to experiment with this knowledge, you don't have to study all this stuff. I'm just trying to whet your interest in, because you know astrology, in this, so that you can maybe play this game with me of recognition and share with me what you recognize about astrology and human design. Okay, so most of you are going to be generative. What that means is that you're available to respond to life. And the response to you, to life, should feel satisfying. And that's the essence of the abundance of the signature of the spirit of what you came here for. You're here to be satisfied by life. Your work should be satisfying. Is your work satisfying? Is it? Or not? If it's not, you're likely frustrated. That's a signpost of being out of integrity with one's form, the nature of one's vehicle. Body is the life, this open, enveloping aura here, magnetizing life to it for you to respond to. So that's a very different kind of frequency field than the manifested energy. This manifested energy, which is this closed, more dense, and impactful. It is protective of one's nature. It's close to the body. You can even kind of see that here, very close to the body. This is because your energetic frequency has energy directly connected up to that throat, communication, form, manifestation, and there is no energy resource consistently defined in your design. So these are like two polar opposite, but energy types. They're very, very different from each other, but they're still energy types. Approximately, now I don't know what the calculations are currently, but manifestors are on the rise. Traditionally, we say it's about 10% of the population, and generators about 67% of the population. Manifestors are here to initiate. They get the ball rolling and have freedom of action in order to have peace. The fulfillment of their life's work brings them peace inside. So is your life peaceful, manifestor? This is the thing that you can contemplate. If your life is filled with anger, it's time to take a good hard look at what you're doing with your time, with your energy, or what you are potentially allowing people to do when they trespass on your boundaries. Those are the energy types, but that's not to leave out our non-energy types, or one of my teachers calls them awareness types. I quite like that. I'm a projector. If you're a projector like me, hi. Non-energy type means no consistent access to the consistent generation of life, nor the consistent manifestation of life. And so when you try to imitate, mimic, or be like everybody else, what happens is you end up quite bitter and maybe even resentful because life isn't giving you what you thought you were supposed to get when you thought what you wanted. You did what you thought what you wanted was going to get you what you thought you were supposed to get. Okay, that was quite convoluted. Just saying that the projector has quite an issue when it comes to operating in alignment. We are at the top of the hierarchy of having challenges in this life if we are not operating in alignment, meaning coming from a place of recognition in order to have success. The success is in the recognition of the other in their energy, the recognition of their other in their power, the recognition of the other in their surprise. So here we have the 1%, 1.5. Remember I was saying, anybody in here a reflector? Do we have any reflectors? I'm just curious. You know, these are very rare creatures, very rare. You might be surprised by how rare you are. No consistent access to definition like these other. We call them solar types, okay? Projector, generator, manifestor, you are a solar being. Your purpose shines through you. Whereas a reflector, like the moon, they are connected deeply to the moon. Their purpose is reflected like the light of the moon. It changes. So surprised by what is there, like, wow, didn't know that was there. And again, remember, I'm giving you signatures, signposts of awareness to see how on track you are with the essence of the abundance of the nature of spirit arising from within you. And that's just something to contemplate that might be interesting. Okay, this is part one of how we experiment. So Rob, being a very practical man, how can we make it so simple, even a child could experiment or with it or understand it? Or a parent who didn't want to spend a decade trying to learn human design in order to see if they could raise their children correctly. So we have our reflectors, again, open. We have our generators, either pure generated or manifesting generated. And we have our manifestors, and we have our projectors. So the most ancient construct on this planet, these are our reflectors as far as the form following function. Then out of that became the generators. And then out of that, manifestors. And then out of that, projectors. Now, when it comes to being a projector, new kid on the block, you've only been around since 1781. You are here to master systems. If you cannot put down systems, astrology, psychology, all of the stuff that you could ever learn in order to understand people, hi, you're in the right place. This is like candy, walking a kid into a candy store when it comes to astrology, right? So energetic type, a strategy for decision-making, the shadow theme that gets you to an awareness, and then the signature of your energetic nature of being expressed out into the world. This stuff is further explained in the course materials if you want to go there and learn more further about how to make decisions that you can trust. That's all the system really is about. How do I make a decision that is in alignment with my path and my purpose? How do I make a decision that's going to get me to where I just knew someday I would eventually achieve? So going back to astrology, I know you have questions, but I want to make sure that I give you enough for those of you who are not new to human design, that I give you enough to chew on so that we can get a really good engagement with the materials that you might find you respond to giving us, or you recognize you just want to share, or the power of the information as it moves through you in order to engage and get the ball rolling on a new project. Or maybe you're reflecting over your cycle of the lunar nature of what it is to be you. We are now looking at that mandala wheel, and we're looking at all those hexagrams. And when you get the handout, there's going to be, I think it's about 3 pages, where you'll get the calculations so that you can plug in these calculations into your astrology software and look and see, maybe look up in one of the books if you have it, what that gate activation is, or that portal in space is, in order to see if this correlates with what you already know. You might find you're surprised about knowing some of this stuff already. Of course you know this, yes? What is that? What are we looking at? How are we doing? Engaging? Now do we know what we're looking at? What signs are we looking at, my friends? Fire signs. Excellent. Good job, everyone. Okay. So I can feel that I don't want to overwhelm you too much, but I really would like to get to the rest of the end of this presentation. And we're not going to go and read, I'm not going to read all of the gates and their names, but I'm going to show you big picture view, what you're looking at, so that you can start to feel familiar, like you're not having to learn anything new, that you're just applying some of the principles of what you're aware of already, because you've already learned astrology. Look at that body graph and notice. So if we start with the sign of Aries, this fire sign, and we look at where it's creating life force energy, because that's what definition is: consistent, reliable, trustworthy, energetic nature of being. The first thing that stands out is that we see the heart center and the identity function, or the G center. the high heart in energy healing, this place of love, identity, and direction. So we can see the G center, identity and direction, having a relationship through whatever planets you have to the heart center and the willpower function. This powerful energy that is required in order that we can be empowered in a unique direction. So this is the ability to initiate something new because of the recognition capacity, the willpower connected up to the higher self, a design of needing to be first, where in large groups of individuals, this is the one that rises to the occasion and helps all of us be more competitive, because that's its nature of being. Go look at some CEOs. Sheryl Sandberg, I believe, has this past, I think, marketing director of Facebook. So when you look at somebody's design and you're seeing planets that align in a channel, you're seeing the opening of those portals to where they are uniquely qualified to do something in this life because it is their life force. It is the energetic imprint, it is the nature of their blueprint, in order that they achieve something. Achievements is a good word here for the heart center, yes? So you're looking at people who have the capacity. I'm going to add on one more gate activation here, that 21, biting through. This is the gate that is about power of the control mechanisms to bite through negative and persistent interference. These are people who need to be in control. Anybody else got a gate 21? Do you like being the boss? Are you comfortable when somebody else tells you what to do? Probably not. You're here to be your own boss. Okay, so just examples that I want you to kind of contemplate. When you look at the slides, when you get the handout, you're going to see that there are activations, okay, of these gates, these portals in space, that now when you get the materials, you can go and research and go, oh, okay, I'm familiar with this area of that astrological wheel. I recognize that quality of innocence. Now, the innocence of the spirit of the self with those people who have that activation there. Is it something that you can recognize? The fulfillment of, in this area, it's the mind's fulfillment of purpose, the application of the fulfillment of purpose on this material plane. So it takes a lot of energy to get things started, doesn't it? To keep that heart beating, to have the gall, the courage to be able to initiate and get something new out into the world. It takes coming from the higher self. It takes aligning with that. My mind wants to say God principle, and I don't want you to think that this is anything about religion, because it's not. But this is a shaman channel. It is a bridge between the tribal nature of being and the channel of awakening. It's part of the mystical path. And each one of us, whether you have activations here or not, you still have a path to follow in this life, like the mystical way of awakening, if it is your path or your nature for this life to flow. So if we look at the next fire sign, we can see Leo. And what do we have here in Leo? Alpha, the channel of the alpha, which is a design of leadership for good or bad. So the quality and the nature of being, again, being, the identity, now expressed out in the communication, the world of form, the influential role of someone who logically recognizes that this is the right way to go, an elected leader that other people look to and say, hey, yeah, that's the one. That's our guy. That's our gal. That's our they, whatever it happens to be. That's the person we want to lead because they're alpha, because this is the nature of their genetic inherited potential. This is the broadcasting of what they came here for. This is their job description, you could say, in this life, in this life. And there's your activations. Again, I don't want to read them all because we'll be here too long. And I'm sure you have other things that you want to go engage with. But our last fire sign, if we look at Sagittarius, this particular channel is called the channel of exploration, a design of following one's own convictions, no matter what. For these people, when there are planetary activations connecting up these two portals in space, creating a fixed way that these planets communicate with each other, here in response, energetic response, energy availability rising up from within in order that one has a behavior that is very specific to that person's convictions, that this is just the nature of what they go for or decide about because this is how they are living in alignment. Ooh, I just got excited. And if you just saw a screen pop up, you're probably going to be voting. I shall not look at it right now. Okay, so Sagittarius, right there. This next place that we're looking at, what are we looking at now, my friends? Where is the sun? Is the sun here? The last few areas of time in this space where the sun is shining its light of contribution as it moves the endless march of time around the wheel. What are you looking at, my friends? Earth, earth, thank you, earth. And so if we look at the nature of earth and these glorious earth signs, what we are looking at when we begin with Taurus is there is a strong nature. I'm looking for the commonality or the big picture thread, as well as something just to touch in upon for you to recognize or respond to. The individual, for the most part, nature of being here is about this energetic, you could call it a kind of stubbornness, yeah? Strong like bull and stubborn, because there is this individuality that is there in the nature of all of these gates, with one exception, that 27 there, nourishment, which is where we find people who have compassionate natures and caring, okay? Home, family life, parenting, or in my case, reparenting, yeah, humanity, because that's what advisors, projectors are here to do. You see no channels here. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong, just like your chart, bad. But when it comes to the nature of your process, you can see that there are a lot of different areas that are lit up. And so in a class, we would go into what all of those would mean. And there you have your calculations for when you do your work, your research, as I know some of you will go off to do. And when we look at Virgo, we're looking at two channels, two strengths, two ways. We'll begin here with mating, where we have a design focused on reproduction, where this is about the availability to engage with life and not only to build families by reproduction, but also to build businesses, large businesses, to interact with people in intimate and very deep ways, maybe surprisingly intimate ways. And then we have abstraction, where it is a design of mental activity mixed with clarity, where you're always looking at the past experience, where you're sharing your realizations with others because of the nature of your rich and fertile mind that's constantly looking back at the past and the experiential nature of what you have gone through, because you are pressured to want to make sense of the past, and particularly relational experiences. We're over in the quarter of duality, where it is purpose-filled through bonding, after all. And as we look at our last earth sign, Capricorn, and this is where my moon sits. Anybody else have a Capricorn moon? Is your moon like mine in inner truth, the gate of mystery? Oh, this stuff is so fun to contemplate. Some questions have no answer, but it is one of my driving forces to want to be able to collaborate with you. And this is why I'm asking you, reaching out, what's it like for you? How is this material resonating with you? Is it feeling like something that you might want to engage with? There's a lot of individuality here, as well as some tribal and collective logic in Capricorn. 3 different centers, 3 different ways that these planetary life aspects relate. And again, remember, We're not just looking at astrological signs and symbols, these archetypal themes that we can tune into in order to interpret. There's also hexagrams, there's lines, there's planetary aspects that affect, exalt or detriment. Did you know that we use that term? Exalt or detriment, a very specific line, because planets exalt or they detriment specific areas within gates. And so we can look at that too. It's a fun thing to do. Okay, my friends, quiz time. What are you looking at? Where do we see water? Yes, excellent. Great recognition. I'm loving seeing some familiar friends and some new faces here. Water, water, water. Okay, so if we're looking at water signs, now let's take a look at them one at a time. The head center is about inspiration. You notice how that little head center is outside of the body graph? It's like that for a reason. These mental pressure gates, like that 61 in Capricorn, that high moon, mental focus. Okay, so we're looking at the 63 that is logic, and it's about doubt, inspirational pressure that leads one to questions. Questions are good. Questions that matter to you, not the ones that don't matter to you. Now, notice how we have a whole lot of emotional gate activations here in Pisces. Emotional, aren't our emotions like water? They come and go, they flow. Yeah, they're effervescent, they're bubbly, they're tsunami-like, and you crush and burn. Oh, sorry, that's my fire grounded in the water. My personal experience. Okay, we have the G center again, identity, love, and direction. So you're seeing elements, not only from the astrological principle, but also how it lands in the body graph. What is it like for you to be someone with a lot of Pisces elements? Now you can start to look at specific keynotes and see if they resonate with you when it comes to these gate activations, those hexagrams with their line qualities, and what it might show up like. When you have a lot of gates in Cancer, planets in Cancers within a gate, those gates opening up portals in space. So you're looking at here, communication and identity, drive and stamina, the root, Cancer, where we have, again, energetics that are more here shared, and shared from a very specific place. What is it that leads you to communicate with such voices as I believe, or I think? What is it that leads you to be so provocative, or stable and still, or be able to start things? And again, the aspect. Remember when we talked about Gemini earlier? Here's the rest of the extremes, that aspect of that 15. Okay. Scorpio. Scorpio. I love Scorpio. So what we're looking at here then is we are looking at an area of the body graph. Notice how we've got a lot more activations over on this side, yeah, where we're looking at survival. Scorpio, we know, runs deep, and it's a deep process of facing our fears genetically when it comes to the survivability on this physical material plane, the concerns for the body and its well-being, and the individualistic nature of being able to go deep within, that deep, maybe breakthrough of the insight that comes from your conceptualization process, or the power. This is my unconscious sun. The power of being able to give forth one's awareness of the power skills, being able to empower a unique direction. Deep, creative, inner, potentially knowing of what makes life worth living because of the risks that you take, that make life more meaningful, more creative in your awareness. We're looking at so many elements that you can go and explore. And our last one is, where are we looking, my friends? Excellent. Great engagement. When you're saying this, writing, say it out loud too. It'll help you remember. Yeah, if you don't have it quite yet memorized, when you see somebody else giving you the answer and you're like, I didn't know that. Say it out loud. Type it too. Okay, our last place of observation, again, Gemini shows up and we can see all of those throat gates. Isn't that curious? Isn't that interesting? Each one of those throat gates has a voice. Did you know you have a voice, a genetically imprinted voice? I found this one of the most exciting things when I came through my first classes. Oh, I have a voice. I can hear my own voice. I can hear my own authentic voice. Wow, that's wonderful. So you can learn about these. Which voices do you have? Which planetary life aspect? Not just your Geminis, but did you know your other planets, if they're in your throat, have a voice? They can come across quite serious. They can come across jovial. You would know, yeah, if you look at which planetary life aspects are there in that throat center. So it's not just about, hey, this area. You know, you combine it with planets. Now you know you can combine it with very specific genetic potentials that are your genetic imprinting that you can listen to, that you can learn from. And Libra, where we see all the other splenic or survival intelligence, instincts, pattern recognition, intuition. Okay, so the love of the body. This is a real interesting area. I'm curious if you guys recognize this spot in your whatever system of knowledge that you happen to thrive on studying. Do you recognize that this is about embodiment, this area of the wheel? The love of the body. This is the lead hexagram for all the other, whoops, right to there, splenic gates. The body's well-being, the body's survivability, and it's part of the relational dynamic. How can we survive? By bonding, making more on the material plane so that we can pass on our genetic lineage. Okay, so you have your calculations to play with. And you'll get a handout. Besides this handout, you'll get a handout that is white so you can print it so that you don't have to waste a lot of ink. Okay, who was born in Aquarius? Aquarian sun, my friends? Anybody else? Aquarian? Hello, Aquarian. Okay, look at what we've got here. If your sun is here, here's mine, 30. Channel of recognition, a design of focused energy. The focused energetic recognition of feelings and fate and desire. That might be something that you recognize. Do people project onto you that they'll be part of your desires for some sexual experience? I got that a lot when I was younger. Okay, so what else? We've got the channel of synthesis, a design of being sensitive. That 2027 background frequency shift, that's one of the things that's mutating this body graph. That's one of the things. It's the end of the era of synthesis. And so then you see this rise of more and more people wanting to synthesize because this is our last chance, because this channel is breaking down. Synthesis, being sensitive, deeply connected to touch. It's part of the stream of sensitivity. It's about the love, honor, and obey when it comes to sexuality. And potentially, it's time for a revolution. Or maybe it's time for divorce. We can see all kinds of fun stuff in this design. And I'm curious to see what you recognize, what you get to realize. Do you have that consistent drive? If it's open in you, remember, everybody has everything. You have everything in this mandala wheel. This is all 64 gate matrix. You have it. You either have a planetary aspect, or you have an openness, or you're receptive to learning about life from a partner. I learn about need from my partner. He's got the 19. Okay, so you're going to learn about this relative to you and your nature of being over time, over your lifetime. Are you more drawn to the emotional frequency field that is about sharing one's feelings? Or are you more drawn to, no, I'm just about my tribe, my people. Love, honor, and obey. Otherwise, and you can see that, yeah? Not as much drive for marriage, love, honor, and obey stuff. So that's where I'm going to take a pause and see, how is this landing, my friends? Anything you want to ask?
Well, there's 28 open questions.
Okay.
So
Maybe we
I
take a
don't know that
couple
we're going to
more.
get through all of them, but we are going to have a Facebook post where we're going to invite you to submit the as Laveena will tell you exactly what she wants you to submit, but we can take
Yeah.
the conversation to social media. So
Yeah.
if we don't get your question, it would probably be a good idea to look for that post when we make it on Facebook. It'll be on the KeplerCollege page, and ask your question there. And hopefully somebody, whether it's Laveena or somebody else, will be able to jump in and get an engaging conversation going.
That would be fun. That would be really fun. I like this intersection. Thank you, Lori.
Yeah.
So
do you want to jump into some of these questions?
let's see. We can, or we can continue. It's up
Yeah.
to you.
What do you guys want? If you want to hop in the chat box. They want
You'll
you to
get the
continue.
handout. You'll get the handout. So don't worry about going backwards. We can
Yeah.
continue. Okay.
There's one thing that I
Yeah.
saw a couple times that you might want to bring up whenever you
Okay.
think it's the right time. A couple people were asking about twins and triplets.
Okay, great, great recognition there. So because of the nature of the nuances underneath the line quality, we have color and tone and base. What you'll find that in people who are born right next to each other, as is the case there, that the lunar colors or tones or bases might change. And what that does is, because of resonance and the resonance principle, the moment there's a shift, you're going to have a different relationship between, on the body side, this is the unconscious drive or the thing that gives you your sense of gravity. On the personality side, the lunar imprint is your conscious focus. It's an internal aspect of the foundation of your mind and the way that it functions. So if we take that imprint and then we compare it to the sun and earth on either side, and then we see color, tone, and base changing, and we see everything else potentially, activating things that are moving, because everything's moving, right? Because we're all flying through space, and all of the planetary life aspects flying through space. So even if somebody is born just a few minutes or moments beyond, there is a potential for, particularly at the lunar level, because it moves so quickly, that base to be different, that tone to be different, potentially even that color to be different, which is a different relationship internally with that person to their own conscious awareness, or their body and its balance to their own genetic inheritance on the body side. Okay, so that's a little bit beyond the scope, but it is different. It can be very different. How's that land? Anything else you want to ask before I move on, honey?
There was a question about books, and I know you're giving away books. So I think maybe in the resources, do you have a list of some books in there?
I can put together a list of recommended resources besides the one that were on top of the presentation. That's a great idea. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Okay.
One of my assistants, can you email me and message me so that I don't falsely promise something so that I can get
Yes,
that
I know.
to
I
you.
always have to write it down. There were a couple of people asking about the 88 degrees. So maybe
That's one of the things that we're going to go into. If you want to know why, some of these things are the voice said so. But if I'm recalling correctly, and please, in my assistance, anybody who's present, I'm remembering somewhere that it has to do with Mercury. Okay. That's all I can remember at this moment. But this is transmitted knowledge. It's not created knowledge. It was delivered through Ra by what he interpreted as a voice. And it was a whole system of knowledge that for 8 days and nights, he was penetrated by this experience of the voice, wrote things down, and then spent the rest of his life extrapolating out the meaning of the system and the evolvement of the further nuances as he got deeper and deeper. In the beginning, he had to educate people according to the language. So I'm doing my best to try to remember language that, astrologers might be able to process, like evolve. Who loves evolutionary astrology? Yeah, I love it too. Oh my God, such amazing material coming out of there. Okay, so the last thing that I want to give you before I let you go is the evolvement that all of us are here to have the genetic potential, the unity, and the evolution of human species according to our genetic nature. So there are these words that I want you to contemplate: self, connection, and fulfillment. Self, connection, and fulfillment. Self-connection, fulfillment, this evolving spiral as we are all traveling through space and time, interfacing, letting go, communing, time for someone else or something else. It's all about all of us going through our own self process in connection with another in order to find fulfillment. So if you were ever one of those children, raising my hand here, and when you were born, you felt like you didn't belong. You felt like you didn't fit in. You felt like there was something wrong. You were like, why am I here on this planet right now? I didn't ask to be born. Such a painful life experience. And you felt like you were something missing inside, like you couldn't find yourself, or you didn't know who you were, or you were looking for something greater and beyond in order to find the love. Look, love, evolve, love and evolve. Welcome home, my friends, because all we are walking each other home on this path, and you already are home. It's just that with the levels of conditioning and the pressures of the planet to evolve, what's happening is there's a tremendous amount of conditioning that's happening. And inside of your body, you feel it too. Don't you feel that conditioning, that mutation, that pressure to evolve, to change, to find the meaning in life, the value, the purpose of life, to live one's highest life calling, one's passion, one's purpose? You can find all these little nuances and subtleties inside of the design, but it doesn't speak to the fullest aspect of what you are really here for. So although I can take you through all of these wonderful applications of the human design system and show you the life aspects, you know, analyzing all these trigrams and the water in the design, whether it comes from a sign or whether it comes from hexagrams, because there's elemental I Ching here as well, if you want to establish your awareness around it, or maybe you're already. Anybody else go to astrology, not astrology, chiropractic I wanted to go to, but acupuncture. Acupuncture. Didn't manage to go through that one all the way. So if you're interested in the Asian sciences, I Ching and such, the elements of the I Ching brought into these gate activations, is that really going to help you find that self-connection fulfillment? Well, you can look at little aspects. You can look at the line qualities, which on the lower level are more of an internal process. You can look at the line qualities that at the upper level are more of an external process. So wherever you find, remember, big picture view, the 70%, your life's work, your purpose fulfillment. When you look at that, you can analyze now. You can realize, self-realize. What are you doing here? Self, connection, fulfillment. Each one of us an aspect of self, connection, fulfillment. So when you look at your Rave I Ching, and you can get that, it's a software upgrade on mybodygraph.com, or you can just get a book. The Rave I Ching, again, is the one, the bare minimum and the cheapest of the three I recommended at the beginning. Okay, the complete Rave I Ching, it will show you the incarnation crosses. It won't describe them, but it will show you where these planetary life aspects are. And the whole reason we are all here, in the mystical terms, I would say, all that is it's like a fetus yet unborn. So what we are doing in this Maya, this illusion, this Maya that you create when you wake up every morning, the evolutionary process of a human being from birth to death is about the self, connection, and fulfillment. Depending on where it is, all of us have aspects of this. Self, connection, fulfillment, whether you're a 1, And you are learning about the internal and the unseen. Now I want you just to focus you on one thing. Look at your personality consciousness, the conscious personality, the sun and the earth. Now you know you have an earth activation too. It's the same line. So those of you who are ones, are you investigating into the unseen? It's part of yourself. Sorry, there's some things here that I just don't have time to go through. Twos, are you the natural? You're not necessarily the one that is investigating, but you're being seen. You are seen, and you might be unaware that you're being seen. If you're a 3, part of the connection thing, that was self, by the way, and self. Hi, 3, raise your hand if you're a 3. Do you fuck shit up too? Third line, trial and error, martyr mind. 3s, go, oops, I didn't know that was there. Sorry, my bad. Chance and happenstance. This is where purpose fulfillment lies. So the other way we can connect, externalize. And that is about the quality of being able to influence others, having your opportunities through those that you know. So you're looking. Are you a friend? Are you familiar? Are you somebody who can be friendly with me? The universalization of the form through the awareness construct is about being able to be unseen until it's practical to be seen. The heretic, person who is a messenger, the person who has the capacity to connect in fulfillment of one's karmic purpose, because there are certain people in this life that you need to rescue, save, fix, potentially, depending on your nature of being. And then we have 6s who are role models, who are lines of transition, potentially are Buddhas or Bodhisattvas, those who are on the evolutionary path to what's next. Not that each of these are good, bad, right, or wrong, but the reason why I brought that up quite briefly is because one of my spiritual interests ever since I was a child is on the Vedic side of things. And when it came to astrology, Ra's wife was the first one that told me, ex-wife, told me, hey, you got to go get a reading from Robert Koch. And then 2 other people said, no, you got to go get a reading from, I'm like, okay, universe. And I did. And I was like, holy moly. And so then I started to understand a little bit more because studying Vedic became part of my life too. Started in 2017. In that system, we have line of sight. So a line has a line of sight. Your life has a line of sight. Can you come from the nature of being yourself in this self-connection fulfillment dance? However it is that is correct for you in the self-connection fulfillment dance. Can you connect with the right people on your fractal? Fractal meaning we are all fractal aspects of the totality and the nature of being. Human species, these creatures, these bodies that we live. Welcome home, because you're home here now in this body, embedded in this body and this life. So the costume that you wear, whether it be self or connection or fulfillment, we are all just walking each other home. And I can see that it's getting to the end of our time together today. So I'm curious if, Laura, you would like to ask any more questions before I let you go.
Yeah, actually, you were talking about the Vedic system of astrology, and there was a question about that because there's the difference in degrees between tropical and sidereal, and how does that apply to human design?
Okay, so in human design, we use the Western calculations for the planetary imprints that are brought into the gate. There is somebody out there who has created, I don't know what he calls it, but some kind of, oh, I'm just going to move the gates back 30 degrees or something like that. And I don't recommend it because what that does is it changes the configuration of the body graph. And anybody who's experimented with human design for quite some time, correctly, I might add, will know from experience. If anybody knows me, all my students in here, any student in here, is Laveena a splenic projector? Spontaneous, you know, or is she an emotional projector? That's the difference. So it can change your type quite dramatically. It'll change, you know, all kinds of calculations, whatever it is that that person has created. I don't recommend it. Of course, you be your own authority, try it and see. But when it comes to not wasting time, energy, money, trying to master even yet more systems, why not just start with the source? And then from that place, that more closer to the prime emanating source of the information that was brought down onto this planet, from that perspective, take it and differentiate. That's my recommendation when it comes to that. We do use the other ways of looking at the body graph as a whole from the perspective of the global cycles, but that's beyond the scope of this class. And I'm not an expert in it, so I cannot explain it. Okay.
There was a question if the 16 variables correlate with the Myers-Briggs personality type.
That's a really good question. I haven't studied Myers-Briggs, but I'm quite curious if there are 16 different Myers-Briggs types, are there? I don't know.
It's been a while since I've taken it, so I don't want to answer that question. Somebody in the,
you know what?
yeah,
Actually,
some people
here,
are saying yes in the chat box.
they're saying yes. Okay. So I'm curious then. Here, I'll give you a quick rundown. Does Myers-Briggs tell you whether you're supposed to eat according to smell, taste, outer vision, inner vision, feeling, you know, sight, touch? I mean, does it talk about the physiological nature of how you're here to take in life at all?
Yeah, well, now we're getting no's. So
Okay. So this, I know we all want to do it. Gosh, you guys, you always want to do it. You want to synthesize and put everything together. And I would caution anybody to just go to the source and try for yourself. That's a really good question. I have no idea. I haven't studied that source of Myers-Briggs or any other of the typing systems, except for this one, really deeply. Because every time I keep bouncing into astrology, just for my own personal, I have never done a purely astrological reading. I always stick with a purely human design reading because I want to master one system at a time, but I keep venturing. And that's okay. It's totally fine to be curious and experimental, you know? Does that help?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything else?
Okay. There's so many questions. We're just not going to get to all of them. There's 29 now. There are quite a few about just understanding how to find the information and understand the different components of the human design chart. So I think that your handouts are probably going to cover that. Is that correct?
It's probably going to cover that. Handouts are going to have additional information. The additional information is for you to process potentially. If you are somebody who is interested in human design, however it is that it's correct for you to work with this information, and you want to post something on the social media, wherever you find this video, some recognition, some realization, some linking of the dots, because that's all we're doing when we're learning. We're just connecting the dots. So this is my invitation to you to continue your learning and share your finding with us, whatever your findings happen to be that you have the energy for on social media. My apologies that I didn't have time to go into example charts here. I felt like I really wanted to show, you know, big picture view of all of the things that could be a potential here. And one of the things that they're going to get is the handout that can show some of the elements of how many different ways we can learn using the system of knowledge, whatever it's right for them to explore. And so what you're just seeing now are different ways that we can analyze accordingly to the nature of what somebody has inside of their human design. It's a really deep, fascinating, it doesn't have to be complicated, but it is complex. It does take some time to get to that place where you recognize and can self-realize. And all it is about is simply honoring the nature of your own genetic potential, however it is correct for you. Here's that, You can click on it to go to that link about the 2027, and just showing you that you can run all of those returns for yourself and see in the mandala wheel, can you find those people? Because now we can see people, right? Inner planets being people. You can see also your dream design. You could see so much with this. And it has really been my pleasure and such a gift to be able to speak to your audience. Thank you so much, Lori, for your recognition and invitation into this area of the knowledge. And thanks, of course, to all my teachers in Ra'uru. I will stop share for now because I can feel that it's about time to be done. Yes?
Yeah, well, thank you
Okay.
so much. That was a lot of information, and we're just so happy to have you here. I want to give you all, I know that you're wanting to know, I will be emailing you during the week. I'll wait until Callum gets the replay posted on YouTube so I can send you a link to the replay. I'll send you all of the resources that Laveena is offering to you. And I'll give you information as to how we're going to have this conversation on social media. I'll have to work out some of those details, and then I will send it all to you. Since you registered for this presentation, I have your email, and I'm going to send an email just to the registrants. So you're going to get this special email from KeplerCollege. Be on the lookout. It will come this week. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Sorry we couldn't get to all the questions, but we will follow up with you this week. And thank you. I'm seeing the chats, and I'm seeing my name. So hello to all of you. I know there's people out there that I know. And Laveena, thank you for bringing your people and having some extra help in the chat to answer questions. Really appreciate it. So I think we're going to call it. Thank you, Mary, for supporting in the chat box.
Thanks, Mary.
And yeah, we'll see you next time at some
All
webinar
right.
or out in the astrology community. So thanks, everyone.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you.